I think we all know the number one most important thing we can do in order to make any product or project work, and that is accelerate and master communication. We have to make sure that we don't have any communication gaps. So I thought I'd give you a quick top 10 list of things that we can do to help reduce the number of communication gaps we have at work. This might sound like something that's redundant, but what I've discovered is that when you can correct the communication gaps, when you can fix those things, it often triggers people inside the workspace to do other things differently because they have better information. So let's jump into the list. Let's go down this top 10 list. Coming in first, we'll start at number one. When we don't make an effort to communicate well, a lot of time is wasted in resolving issues that creep up due to misalignment, confusion, and expectation mismatch. So part of this is a lot of people say Agile doesn't require upfront planning. Well, that's not true. Agile does require limited upfront planning. It doesn't require heavy upfront planning, but you still need to do some upfront planning in order for you to best engage and in order for you to best interpret and be able to communicate. Because a lot of times what I see is, oh, I didn't remember to tell you this, or this didn't come through, or there's certain things that you should have been aware of that you weren't. And when those things creep up and you have those misalignments and that confusion, it creates this mismatch. Oftentimes, it's just a mismatch of expectations between you and a stakeholder. So you need to make sure that you have those mismatches aligned, that you have the alignment taken care of, and that you're reducing confusion. So that's another real good reason why we have these communication gaps. All right, number two. Communication can be less chaotic when everyone commits to resolving differences proactively instead of relying on other people. Sometimes what I see is people often say, I don't know the answer to this. Go talk to Joe. Go talk to Mike. Go talk to Steve. Go talk to Sharon. And what we find is that when you're putting it off to other people and not becoming actively involved in resolving the differences, it forces or passes the buck to someone else, which slows things down and creates these communication gaps. It creates the telephone game where you see people who are talking to each other, but it's second party, third party. It's never right from the horse's mouth. So we want to make sure that we hear things directly from where they came from so that we can best resolve some of these communication issues. Let's go to number three. Seek alignment on priorities and agree on a common measure of success. Success is more likely when everyone works on a shared goal. So if we can focus on impact and outcome instead of output, we can create the best outcome with as little output as possible and get everyone on the same page with regard to priorities. Nothing is worse than when a team feels like, oh, I'm working on the number one priority, and they discover that that's not the number one priority. The number one priority is now over here. Now it's over here. If it's a moving target, we can't ever expect the team to have the alignment on not only what to work on, but how do we measure success? And I think both of those together bring an important point. We need to make sure we're following up and focusing on both of those things. All right, let's go to number four. Speaking up is important to communicate your ideas and opinions, but you shouldn't refrain from listening to others. Communication is not a one-way street. So if you think about it from this perspective, sometimes when we speak, let's rewind. Sometimes when we listen, we're listening with the intent to reply. I know I'm guilty of this. Many times when someone comes to me and says, oh, this is what's going on, the second they get to the point where I think I know the answer, I'm repeating that answer in my mind with the intent to reply as soon as they're done speaking, instead of listening with the intent to understand, in which case I'm not trying to formulate an answer while they're speaking. I continue to listen until they're finished speaking, and then I can formulate an answer. Those are two completely different things. Now, once again, I believe everybody deserves a seat at the table. I believe that everybody should have a voice. I believe in inclusivity and equity. I believe in all those things. But I also believe that you shouldn't open your mouth until everyone is done speaking, so that way you can listen and be a better communicator instead of just listening with the intent to reply. Pretty simple one. Let's go to number five. Expecting others to register key information by saying it once is a big mistake. Unless you repeat it multiple times, it will not get the time and attention it deserves. If you have something that's a key piece of information and you only mention it one time in a meeting, especially with a group of people, Chances are half of those people didn't hear when you mentioned it. Half did, and half of those disregarded, and half of those took it in. So at best, you're going to get 10 to 15 to 20% of the people who got what you said. But if you say it twice, that number is going to more than double. And if you say it 3 times, that number is going to more than double again. The point I'm trying to make here is that if it's something that's important or a key piece of information, make sure that you say it at the top of the meeting as part of the agenda, talk about it during the meeting, and close with a follow-up on that subject to make sure you have at least 3 chances to make sure that key piece of information is received by everyone in the meeting. Let's go to number 6. Good questions, powerful questions, have the power to unlock creative thinking and surface out hidden problems. Use every opportunity to explore curiosity by asking the right questions. Everyone I think here knows my number one question I love to tell people to ask. Help me understand. It's one of those things where you're not saying no, but you're positioning yourself to say, help me understand why this might be the case. Help me understand what we can do to make things go in the right direction. Help me understand how we can work better together. Help me understand how you came to that conclusion. Help me understand how we can make this possible with a limited number of people we have available. Help me understand which of these is a higher urgency. That question is going to help you unlock creative thinking, and it's going to help you vet out where people are coming from without becoming confrontational. It's going to give you an opportunity to have that two-way communication, which is so important for you to have. Let's go to number 7. Assumptions, when not validated, can lead to gaps in expectations. Avoid frustration, angst, and anxiety by seeking some alignment up front. Oftentimes, what I teach is that assumptions are based on you interpreting how someone else feels. And since there's no real way for you to understand the feelings of someone else unless you directly ask them and listen to their feedback, you need to deal less with assumptions and deal more with a hypothesis. You need to get those assumptions to hypothesis so that we can then use techniques to vet out whether or not we need to take specific actions. That is going to be the best way to close those communication gaps. Because if you're just going with assumptions and rolling with assumptions, you've got a long way to go. All right, number 8, one of my favorites. Blaming, shaming, and complaining never solves problems. Instead of pointing fingers, identify what caused the communication gap and figure out how to avoid it in the future. This is often referred to as hidden factory, where you're repeating the same problems over and over again and not realizing it. So instead of solving the hidden factory problem, you're blaming, shaming, complaining. Oftentimes I refer to this as the wine and cheese party, wine being WHINE. Everyone likes to whine, blame, shame, complain, talk about it, but no one ever brings the cheese, which is a potential solution to solve the problem. So we need to make sure that when we're whining and dining, that we're bringing the cheese, because we shouldn't be pointing fingers. We should be solving issues. And I think that if we get to that point, it's going to make the communication in a meeting so much better, and it's going to help us reduce those communication gaps. Let's jump up to number 9. Avoiding conflicts or delaying them makes the situation worse. Step out of your comfort zone and embrace discomfort. Discomfort is another term for growth. And I know that sounds strange, but sometimes when you're just outside of your comfort zone, that means that you are looking at new ways to solve problems. You are learning. You're in that zone where you're just a little skeptical about what's happening. But it's going to help you overall understand better, and it's going to help you get to that help me understand point where you can really get rid of the conflict. Don't put things off. Jump straight in and say, hey, we have a communication issue here. I don't think I'm on the same page as you are. Help me understand how I can do this better. Or help me understand why I might be thinking this way. And what will happen is you'll open up opportunities for people to open up to you. And finally, last but not least, number 10, ego kills a conversation. Watch it carefully and deny it the power to guide your thinking of how you communicate and collaborate with others. Don't let your ego run away with you. Humility goes a long way. And that's coming from a guy who sometimes lacks humility. And what I can tell you is, if you are egotistical or if you're conceited about something, it's going to put you in a position where you have the lesser hand. The easiest way for me to explain this is with a famous quote. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If you can show people how much you care, then how much you know comes naturally. But if you just come in as omnipotent and all knowing, it's going to kill things pretty quick with regard to a conversation because people are just going to disregard you as a know it all, and that's going to be the end of it. So I hope that these 10 tips are going to help you reduce communication gaps, and they're going to help you do better at work and help you achieve bigger goals. That's going to do it for this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.